Welcome everyone back to my channel. This is your first time here. Welcome, have a seat down and let's talk about this book, okay? As you know, there's a slightly different format. If you've been here before, you know that I'm changing up my format and how I do things. It might even change even more depending on how I feel, because the more I get into this, the more I do this, the more I want to be more loose and less restrained. So I might give the basic questions and just blurb from there. Like, you guys like my black house? I think that's what I'm gonna do from now on. It's something like that. To explain some more details about what I like, what I'm reading, how I felt about the book, and just spoiling the book in the spoiler section. Okay, so this is Dark Rivers of the Heart by Dean Koontz. So Dean Koontz seems to be a hit and miss with me. I'm not actually sure why, but the thing is that his first book I read by him, The Husband, I loved it. It was fast paced, it was thriller, it's suspenseful. It hit me right. And the next one, Mr. Murder, it flopped. I didn't really enjoy it, and especially when they put clones in there. Clones. I don't care about clones, okay? And then again, I could have been reading it at the wrong time, because I was reading another book during that time frame that was about clones. No, clones. I don't know. Anyways, this one was okay. It was interesting enough for me to keep reading, but it did not wow me, spark me. It didn't disinterest me either, so that's a good thing. I mean, it was still interesting. Got the whole read. It made me want to finish reading it, so I wanted to know what was happening, because one of the characters is a little cuckoo. So there's that. So this is a standalone. I don't think Dean Koontz has many that are series, but regardless, standalone. So what made me read the book? Well, it's a total mystery, and I picked it up, it sounded interesting. That's really what it was. So, Spencer Grant had no idea what drew him to the bar with the red door. He thought he would just sit down, have a slow beer or two, and talk to a stranger. He couldn't know it would lead to a narrow escape from a bungalow targeted by a SWAT team, or that it would leave him a wanted man. Now he's on the run from a serious and ruthless man. He is in love with a woman he knows next to nothing about, and he is hiding from a past he can't fully remember. On his trail is a shadowy security agency that answers to no one, including the U.S. government, and a man who considers himself a compassionate angel of death. But worst of all, Spencer Grant is on a collision course with inner demons he thought he buried years ago. Inner demons that could destroy him if his enemies don't first. Dark Rivers of the Heart, do you dare step through the red door? So, Spencer Brand, not Spencer Reed, like I like from Criminal Minds, is a little woo in the head, okay? So, by that, he tails a woman home after talking to her in a bar. He enjoyed talking to her and wanted to know more about her, so he was waiting until she left the bar to go home, followed her home, watched her for a little while, then went home, and then went back the next night to talk to her some more. Mom realized that she hadn't appeared, and he was concerned, so he went to go to her house, and things blew up from there. Like, really, yeah. The genre is to be considered a psychological thriller. Not horror. It's not really any kind of horror in it. It's really thriller, and it's psychological in this one because a lot of it has to do with Spencer's inner workings of his mind. Did this live up to my expectations? Yeah, it was okay. So it didn't really live up to my expectations of what I thought it would be, but it's, like I said, it was an interesting read. So it was okay to read it. Yeah, I don't really care for this stuff. So, as I said, the first part is going to be like really quick because I want to get into the chunky stuff. So the non-spoiler review is going to end here, and we're going to move on into the spoiler section of the review. So if you do not want to be spoiled, you can go ahead and leave, but leave me a like, a comment, or a subscription. And if you want to read this, then come back to this video, go ahead, you do that. I will encourage it full-heartedly. Because it might actually interest you. Or if you want to get spoiled and then read it for yourself, that's okay too. I mean, it's a little crazy to be reading it like that, but that's you. That's on you. So I'm going to give you a second or 2 or 3 to vamos nicely, quietly, with all the love that I have for you guys, out the door. I mean, come back. I don't really want you to leave, but this is what I get for lumping in spoiler and a non-spoiler together. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The spoiler section. Okay, for the spoiler section, there we go. I'm going to name off the important people. So you have Spencer Grant, you have Eleanor Ellie Somerton Nate Golding, who uses fake names Valerie Ann Keene and Anna Mae Rainey. She was going to change her name to Bess Bear, but she didn't get to it. Roy Muro, Rocky. He's a good dog. Good dog. Harris Diaz-Cotex, his brother, Darius. Let's see, who else is important enough to point out? Oh, Eve Mary Jammer and her, the person she works for, Thomas Simrington, and Steve Ackblom. Those are the most important ones, okay? They really are. So Spencer Reed goes to this red door. He's drawn to it. He doesn't really know why. It's just something subconscious that he doesn't understand fully in the very beginning, okay? So he meets Valerie Ann Keene, which is a big identity that he didn't even know. So, like I said about the non-spoiler section, he follows her home after work one night and watches her, and then he goes home. And what he doesn't know is that she actually tailed him back to his house and then looked up everything she could about him, found that there really wasn't anything there, and was like, well, he must have been sent by the bad people, so I'm going to go ahead and vamoose because I'm worried that someone's coming to kill me. There were people coming to kill her. The next night, he goes back to her house because he's like, goes back to the bar, and they're like, oh yeah, he didn't show up. Or she didn't show up. Rosie, who was working with Valerie, said, oh yeah, she didn't show up for her thing, and I'm worried about her. So he goes to her place to check up on her, breaking and entering and physically knowing and acknowledging that what he is doing is wrong. Breaking and entering somebody's house is completely and utterly wrong, and he just does it anyway because he's like, I want to know what happened to her. So he's going through the place, noticing that it's very sparse, buried, and a lot of stuff going on in there, and a lot of anything besides a picture of a cockroach that's on one of her walls. And while he's in there, a SWAT team invades. I mean, he makes it out. He makes it out through a bathroom window that's up top, barely escaping. He did take out one of the SWAT teams because he had no choice, but he did. And he realized that, crap, now they might most likely will be after me. So he, like, I need to figure out where she's going because I want to protect her. Like, I don't know who these people are who want her dead, but I want to protect her from them. So he goes to someone named Mr. Lee. And he's actually running a movement that is trying to stop the corrupt government security agency that the United States government and the president don't even know exist. So he's like, why do you want to talk to Rosie again? Why do you want to do this and that? And he's like, I just want to protect her. I just want to keep her safe. And he's like, well, here's a coin, and if you ever need help, you call for Pheasants and Dragons, and gives him all the default information that Valerie showed up from Las Vegas. Oh, Rosie told him that. So he goes to Las Vegas with Rocky, his dog, and poor Rocky. Rocky was abused. Rocky was severely abused, and he's scared of everything, including the night outside. Yeah. And that's where he learns that she was using the name Hannah Mae Rainey as a alias in Las Vegas, where she took care of a old lady named Theda Davids Watts. Now, Spencer might be a smart ex-military, ex-Los Angeles police officer, but he's not that smart to realize that they might be watching Theta. They might be listening in on her conversations because they're trying to find out where she might be, even though Valerie has not been there forever. Might want to know where she is, might have a look for a hint or anything. And because he went there and spoke to her, they went after him, and they're like, who is this guy? And they try to find out. And they realize that he's wiped everything clean. The only thing that they have is that he graduated from the police academy, and he worked in cyber part of the police academy, and that he retired after some stuff went down, negative stuff went down, and he just retired. He quit. I mean, he didn't need a job anyways because he had a farm that used to belong to his dad, and it brought him in a lot of money, and he had a lot of money. I mean, he carried $50,000 as a bank account, and he also had a Swiss-based account and another offshore-based account. So he was making sure nothing was connected to him from his previous life because he didn't want anybody knowing about his previous life. But that also meant that his water bill was underneath a different name. His internet was underneath the name. His cell phone was underneath the name. His house that he was living in underneath, his truck underneath a different name. His power bill underneath a different name. Everything was underneath a different name that required it. And it all stood up to scrutiny up to a certain point. And the only thing that was real was that he really did change his name from what it was to Spencer Grant. Because of two movies that he liked, main characters were Spencer in one movie and Grant in the other one. So that's what he changed his name to. With the help of his grandparents, who of course long since dead. So there's that. But they did find out because the guy hunting Eleanor, or Ellie for short, aka Valerie, was Roy Muro, and he was relentless, and he kept having them dig and search, and they even had a picture of him with his scar that he had received from when he was a kid that he doesn't remember much about. Like, he was relentless on it, and they finally figured out who he was and what he was connected to. Okay. His name was Michael Ackblom, and his father, Steve Ackblom, was a famous artist that liked to do terrible things to women on the side. And it was after he married Michael's mother that he started doing that kind of stuff. His mother found out when he was like 4 or 5 years old, and he was murdered for it. And even though Spencer did not know that his dad murdered his mother, he watched him beat his mother up and drag her back to the barn, and he went back to bed. But he couldn't sleep with an air conditioning anymore. And then he finally, when he was 8 years old, he got up, he heard a scream, and he went to the barn, and that's when he discovered how disturbing his father is. And the reason why he was attracted to the red door was because of the red handprints that were on a door that he called the red door when he was a kid, because it had red fingerprints on it. There's the connection there. Yeah. And his dad was like, I want you to be just like me, because you're my son, you're my blood, and you obviously have the same type of stuff going through my brain that I do. You know, you're just like me. You have to be, because you're my blood. Actor's not really like him, but he repressed that. He remembers going to the barn, getting into it, but he doesn't remember anything that happened from after he got into it to when he was rescued. And he had tried to save the lady. He wanted to save the lady, but his dad had killed the lady that he had been tormenting, and that guilt made him forget, and he ate him up. It ate him up so much on the inside. So he was determined to help Ellie out. After he visit with Theta, he got into a car chase, and the car chase landed him into a river, and the river gave him when he went into the river, he got a bump on his head, which just made him have a concussion, and he was close to dying. Sorry, my nose is like potatoes. And Ellie, who had been tracking him, rescued him. And together they talked and they figured out things, and he became honest, and he sat there and spilled out his whole life story about why he was no longer Michael Alplum, but he was Spencer Grant. So Ellie gave her side of the story. So she is a great person with technology. You know, tech is her thing. She married another person who she met at tech school called Danny Somerton, who was the son of Thomas Somerton, the one that runs the secret agency that's corrupt beyond means, for its own uses and stuff. And Danny and her found out the corruptness of her as a father, and that Danny was going to go to the police about this after they gathered enough evidence to shut the whole thing down. Well, Thomas ordered a hit on his own son and Ellie's entire family. So the hit killed her father, her mother, her fiance, husband, and was after her. So she started running at that point, and she'd been on the run since that time. And the one relentlessly coming after her was Roy Meara, and he is what he believes he is, the angel of death, granting mercy from the hardships of life through death. You having hardships? Don't worry about it. I got you. You weren't alive. You no longer alive. Okay? That's how I do it. That's how I really do it. And he met someone that's a little loophole like him called Eve Mary Jammer. So she works for her father's nameless government. She was married to a guy. She falls in love with Roy and his work and wants to help him. So Roy, who figures out who Spencer is, says in his mind, he's like, okay, I know for a fact Spencer is going to go back to his family home. He's going to go back there. I just know it. So he sits there and goes and gets Steve Alcoma out of prison and brings him to the farm, and they wait for Ellie and Spencer to show up. Ellie and Spencer do show up with Rocky, and they go inside. He shows her, he's telling her, and then he finally remembers everything. And that's when Steve and Roy come out and we're like, boom, we're here, you know? And then Steve pistol whips Roy. I don't remember if that's exactly what happens, but he knocks Roy down, injures him severely, and it's like, come on, Michael. I never hurt you, Mikey. You're my son. I love you. You're just like me, I promise. But between Rocky and Spencer, well, Steve Acton dies. Roy almost dies, but he's saved. And because of that, he goes on to plot taking over the presidency with his girlfriend. So she plans to marry some dude, and then is a senator, and then kill the senator, and then run for president, and then marry him. Because their world is all that stuff. Now, what does Harris have to do with anything? Well, Harris was the chief of Los Angeles that Spencer worked under. He sat there and said, whatever side Spencer's on is the right side. Everybody else is wrong. Spencer is hard up good. And Roy takes offense to that, and so decides to ruin his entire freaking life to the point where his house is seized. He's arrested for being a drug dealer, even though he's not, and he has to go on the run. So he changes his name and everything. Him, his wife Jessica, and his two daughters, Willie and Nadine, they change their names, and he becomes Ronald Ron Truman. It's never mentioned what his children's names are. Now, Spencer Grant at the end of the book becomes Bill Richmond, Philip Richmond. Yeah, Phil Richards. And Ellie becomes Ellie Richards. And you find out that she's pregnant and that they're going to name their daughter Jennifer Corrine after both of their mothers. So then you learn their mother's names. Yay! But you don't remember who. You don't know who's who. And, at the end of it, you find out that Phil, aka Spencer, and Ellie are working for Mr. Lee, the Pheasants and Dragons, to save people from what the nameless government is doing to them. So, my favorite character was Rocky the dog. He is the kindest, most deserving of love ever. They changed his name to Killer. He's never killed a thing in his life. But he did save Ellie and Roy. Because he knew Steve and Roy, not Ellie and Roy, Ellie and Spencer. Because he knew Steve and Roy were bad. My most disliked character was Roy. I mean, he's even more psychotically stupid than Spencer. But very smart about it. Killing people without them realizing he's killing them. Or tricking them into he's going to kill them. Because he thinks he's helping them. Which he's not. The suspense was gripping you tightly from the get-go. That's what I liked in that. Spencer gets into so much trouble that it was not hard to sit on the edge of my seat as I read about him running from people that he didn't know existed at first, and when he found out they existed, just running from them and their plans and everything. And then, you know, the one thing that I don't understand is the 180 in this. They're trying to escape, they're trying to run away, they're trying to bring down this government. And then it switches to, gotta resolve Spencer's past. Why? Why do you make the resolving of Spencer past the ending of the book? Okay, so, what stood out as memorable was the way the book ended. It made it seem like there was more, thus allowing us to use our imaginations to run wild, because it does end like a cliffhanger. Like, we're gonna help you, you know, we want you to help us bring down this nameless organization, nameless agency. So, you know, it feels like more should be happening after that. So my favorite passage from the story is, listen, Mikey, listen now. The same dark rivers run through your heart and mind. Listen, and you can hear it, that deep, dark river roaring along, swift and powerful, roaring along. Except it wasn't, because Spencer was not into it at all, and he didn't have the heart nor the urge to do that kind of stuff at all. And I think it stemmed from the fact that he saw his mother disappear in front of him, and he did not understand what was happening, but psychologically it did something to him, where he was like, bad. Dad's bad. Anything associated with my father is bad. And he's, you know, when he finds out what happened, he's just disgusted that his dad did what he did with him. You know, that his dad went and slept with his mother while murdering women. That his dad played with him and hugged him and kissed him goodnight after murdering women. Like, no. And the only reason why I like to quote is because it says Dark River. It's about the Dark River, you know, what the book is, Dark Rivers of the Heart. Not really darkness in Spencer's, besides the fact that he had a terrible childhood, that his father was a murderer, and that his father murdered his mother and a bunch of other women, and then tried to make him murder. But my favorite quote is, as Spencer says, never lie to the dog. That was his one rule. And he told Ellie that. So Ellie and Spencer both have that one rule. You never lie to the dog. The dog, you tell the truth to. As long as he's in your shop. So what I thought about the ending of the book. It was okay. The way the book was set up made it seem like it was a series, or could potentially become a series. As far as I know, it's still a standalone. I didn't actually Google the look to see whether or not it was a standalone or not. It's still. But, it also reminded me of Mr. Murder, the ending, because I did sneak peek read that. Like, they had their lives so switched around and had different identities. So, there's that. What book did it remind me of? A little bit of his other book, The Husband in Mr. Murder. That's what it reminded me of. This book is a standalone. I rate this a 3 because it was an interesting plot, but there were some things he could have left out. It just seemed that he overuses a bad guy killing people to kill people a lot. because that's what it's like in Mr. Murder and in this one too. So like, oh, I'm just a bad guy that kills people. One of them was ordered to, and the other one was not. But when the one went off the rail, he just started killing people because he liked it. He enjoyed it, and actually, he did enjoy killing women that he slept with. The same thing with Roy. Roy liked killing people. He just liked offing them. No other reason but that he could off them. You know. However, yeah, there's that. So that is the 3. I will be unhauling it because I'm not gonna be interested in rereading this. So that is 3 books I'll be unhauling so far this year. My 3 Japanese plays. I'm never going to read the 3 plays again because they don't really interest me in any way. And I've decided that I'm never going to read the Tommyknockers by Stephen King again. So I'm unhauling that one as well. Although it will be without a cover because it's not attached in any way, shape, or form. And I'll also be unhauling this one. If you guys think I deserve a like, comment, or even a lovely subscription, drop it down below. I will see you. Yeah, you. Next